This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 104.
Welcome to We the SEs Podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's up, Benny?
It's going well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Going bananas a little bit. I'm wearing my Elmo shirt. It's for my son's birthday. You know, I had to wear this.
Hey, I prefer that over my shirt. I'm just wearing a regular shirt.
I'd prefer that too, over your shirt. I don't like wearing shirts. That's what. Don't hold it against me. I guess I'm in the wrong industry if I don't like wearing shirts.
There's that, or even maybe the society we live in, or maybe the nature of this whole COVID-19 situation or remote meeting thing has things kind of flipped. Because right now we live in a world where you don't need to wear pants because everything is all from the top up. But, yeah.
So we had a coffee break, a virtual coffee break with people on the email list from We the SEs. And the first thing I said, I hope it wasn't insensitive or anything. I need everybody to stand up just to make sure that you guys are wearing pants.
I would have failed. I wouldn't have stood.
I was wearing shorts.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Okay, cool. That's a good way to do that.
Yeah. So, all right. Anyways, today's show is with Tobias Metz. I hope I didn't butcher your name, Toby. If you're listening, I know you're listening to the intro and outro. You're not going to listen to your part, but I hope you do because it was very insightful and you can just revel in how smart you are while listening to that. And, you know, he was worried because he's from Germany and it was 10:30 at night when we started this. His time, he was worried about his language capabilities, but considering he's at least bilingual, he did very well. And he's brand new SE. And do you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I think everybody's going to really, well, who am I to presume, but I think it's a very enjoyable show. Again, it's cool to get an international perspective on the world of sales engineering, particularly from someone who's just getting into it in such a large organization. And so anybody just getting into it, anybody that's facing challenges really of any kind, but particularly if you're newer, there's quite a bit that you'll be able to get out of this particular show. And also, yeah, kudos to Toby for his English and for just taking the time as well. Yeah, it speaks way better English than I could even dream of speaking German. So
forget about the English part. Kudos for being fearless. Yeah. He's been on an SE for 6 months and he's already SE for 6 months, speaking a second language on a podcast, and he just jumped on like it was nothing. So kudos to him. Let's jump into the show.
How are you?
I'm good. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Toby. I'm from Germany. I'm a systems engineer at Cisco at the moment, and this is my first SE gig, and I only started about half a year ago, so it's all still pretty new to me, but I'm also settling in right now.
Okay, and how are you enjoying it so far?
Actually, I enjoyed much more than I thought before, because I did not know what a sales engineer or a systems engineer is doing, but I knew that it was different to go to the vendor side, so I was a little bit prepared. But when I started to realize what the job really is and how I have to interact with customers and with my colleagues, and it clicked in, and I really started to enjoy it, and it was like, for me at the moment, it's like the job I was looking for, and I did not know I was looking for it.
So yeah, you like, I'm looking at our chats from like when we started first our discussion. You mentioned that 2 years ago, if someone asked you if you wanted to be an SE, your question would be, "What is an SE?" So
exactly.
So you went from that to becoming an SE. But what enticed you to first? Did you pursue the role? Did someone contact you? How did it happen?
We can get a little bit back right after the next part, but it was more like I did not think about changing roles at the time last summer, but I suddenly got approached by a recruiter. I think it was from Cisco directly over LinkedIn. It was my first job over a job social network.
Okay.
And yeah, it felt pretty strange. The funny thing was, in my old company where I was doing more of consulting work, they helped us with getting a standard response, because we're always getting like these, do you want to come to join us? And these were always gigs where we maybe could have gone as consultants, so we've made a standard reply. And I had this prepared. On that day, I got the message in my inbox, and I was about to hit send when I saw from where it came, and I thought, no, you cannot say, do you want a consultant to Cisco? So, and at that time, I wasn't pretty sure how I want to do it, but I thought maybe I just go ahead and let's see where it takes me. And in the process and getting to know the possible future colleagues, it was very interesting. And in the end, it was a fit, and I said, let's try this. Why not? And I never looked back, to be honest.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, especially it's kind of cool to kind of see your mindset of, you know, not really being too sure and then kind of wanting to take that leap. Just to maybe give a little bit more context around what or maybe where your head was at. What were you coming from? You said you were consulting. Was it maybe like a specific type? Was that kind of the background you had in general? Where were you coming from?
Well, let's maybe rewind a little bit more. When I started my career after school, I wanted to become a teacher. And
Nice.
I did go to university to become a teacher, mathematics and computer science. And yeah, did not work out as I wanted it. I never finished it. But before I was like the lazy guy sitting at university for all his life, I thought, no, let's stop it here. Let's do something different. And in Germany, we have something like a dual system, where we have like vocational school and vocational training combined with businesses taking on apprentices. And there we have some computer science related jobs that you can become, can you get educated in and have something like a certificate. Maybe you can say it's a little bit like college or pre-college. I don't know. There's no real comparison with the American system, but I try to think in that direction when I talk about it to English-speaking people.
Yeah.
And yeah, I did that for 2.5 years, and then I worked in German government IT, because that's where I had the training. But it was more like a sysadmin. No, not government. Just correct me. More like in the employment service, government related,
Okay.
and in their internal IT. And it's more like it was more like sysadmin stuff, and was highly processualized. So everyone knew what he had to do, and it was a little bit boring to me because I wanted to do more. And around that time, I got exposed to certifications and stuff like network certifications, especially Cisco ones, but others too. And I started pursuing that, and then went on to market looking where I could go. And the job I got after that was at a partner, I would now say, a value-added reseller, even more like in the distributor region. And there I got involved like in everything, post-sales, pre-sales. It wasn't really a sales engineering position, but it had elements of it. And all the parts, not only pre-sales, but post-sales. And it was interesting. It helped me a lot to grow and understand what's important. And this was the first mind shift I had. When I got this job, I wanted to be this network engineer that's hitting the command line and being the guy who knows everything and fixes every error and is the troubleshooting king, whatever. And there I got more shifted into, let's say, design and architecture, because that's also important, and that's something that was interesting to me. And that's like the story of my career, because I always find something that's interesting and focus in that direction, because I thrive on new things, so to say. And yeah, from that I got into the consulting company. That's probably what you think consulting is today, like it was 20 years ago. You say you're a consultant, but in the end you're somebody who is trying to put out a fire at the customer. Yeah. And that led me to getting engaged by Cisco. Maybe I raised some alerts in the recruiting system because I did some Cisco certification. I don't know, but it came together. And yeah, it worked out, and now I'm a SE, and now I know what an SE does, and I like it. And let's see where I'm going next. But I have to say, already my personal focus, what I like to do, and what's interesting to me has again shifted. So
Yeah.
from pure design to more like bringing network or technical stuff, not only network, but technical stuff and the business side together, because I think this is also important in the current time, because too many IT people talk only about IT and the rest of the business talks about business, and then the problems start.
Yep.
That makes sense. I want to ask, there's a lot to unpack from that, that we'll go into, I'm sure, shortly. But I just want to ask kind of maybe a silly question at the beginning. Maybe times have changed, but is it true in, say, post-secondary education in Germany, so say university, college, etc., can people just come in like with steins of beer or like with a pint into class? Is that more accepted in classrooms in Germany?
That sounds like something. Don't know. No.
No? Okay,
There are still happenings that are really relaxed, and we had a professor in university where I had my programming 101, so to say, was about Java, and it was always early in the morning, too early for such stuff, but we always took our coffee and our breakfast and said it's breakfast with the professor, and it worked.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
I think Benny was about to move to Germany just to go to university, and now he's going to unpack his bags and stay home.
He can come over for Oktoberfest. Maybe not this year because of the current situation. There are already rumors about what's happening and what's not. Even so, it's at the back of the summer. So don't know. Maybe come next year.
Fair enough.
All right, well, we'll put that on our calendar. So you mentioned that you're in a position, you look at about where you want to go, and then you look at the steps that you have to do to achieve it. Like you wanted to go into networking, so you did some certifications. How did you choose? Why did you choose Cisco certifications, first of all? And second of all, go ahead. Maybe answer that question.
Okay. Well, that's a little bit. That maybe was a little bit biased because the vocational school where we did our theoretical training at the time was a Cisco Networking Academy. So they offered us to do the CCNA course for free or for a little less money than if you would do it privately over some portal. And that's why I started learning there. And then I thought I learned all this stuff that's fitting to this certification. So why do not do this one first? And that's where it led me. But to answer the other part of your question is maybe more like in the beginning, I knew what I wanted to do and took the steps. But after that, it was always more like it came to me and I had to decide, do I want to do it? Or do I want to do what I'm doing now? And to be honest, in the last 5 years, I've always decided I do want to do it because it's something new, it's something exciting, it's a new challenge.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I heard a saying by someone famous that I may or may not agree with. If you hit a fork in the road, you should take it. And like whenever you have the opportunity, basically take it.
Or you could argue, if you saw the fork in the road and it went straight. I feel like that.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm saying, like, I'm not sure I agree with it, but it is a saying out there. So, so you took a course, CCNA.
Yeah.
And did you take the other courses? Like, did you keep going with your certification? Did that help you with your role?
To be honest, I'm a different learner, and from the course, actually, after the course, when I attempted to do the official test in the test center, I failed.
Okay.
And then I got the book and the blueprint and learned on my own pace with my own resources, and then I passed. And this approach has worked for me for most of the certification stuff I have done since then. And I think it's because I'm more like a methodical learner where I take in maybe a little bit of a podcast or a video where I want to know about the topic. But the most part I take on reading up and making my own notes. But I know there are other people that are other learners, and everyone is different in that regard. But for me, this worked the best because then I have my own way and not somebody telling me how in his own structure.
Yeah.
I can give my structure to other people when I have learned the topic to tell them and educate them about it a little bit. I also take fun in that. That's the teacher part that always has stick with me. But for me, myself, I always get the most of it if I do it in my own structure and at my own pace.
Yeah. So are you familiar with O'Reilly Learning?
Yes.
Yeah. So they have videos and they have the books, right? And I've been going through like Linux Plus or GCP, whatever it is that I'm going through at the time. I noticed that I watch the videos, and after like maybe 10 videos, I'm like, I think I need to read the book to see it in front of me. And then I end up taking notes, kind of like I agree with that. At least that's how I learn as well. Benny, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm curious actually. So that was really interesting what you mentioned, especially this idea of you knowing your learning style and having some pretty solid proof as to what works and what doesn't. And I think that's very important for everybody to kind of have as an understanding as to how it is that they're able to take in information best and kind of adjust themselves to do that. Being more methodical, how does that affect you on calls? So say when you're kind of getting a bunch of information presented to you, does it take, like, how do you use your style to be most effective in the role live on the call with a prospect?
Well, I'm actually doing the same Ramsey did. I'm taking notes. I'm more paperless now, but I'm taking notes.
Ooh.
And I often tend to try to let the other people talk first and make my mind up and then chime in. But it depends. If there's a call with some people on it, maybe a partner, the account manager, maybe even another sales specialist from our organization, and most of them are more experienced than me, and they always start talking, and that's good for me at the moment because then I have time to take everything in and make my mind up. But there are other engagements where I probably on the center stage, because there's only the account manager who is doing the intro, and then it's off to me, maybe even with the demo part. And then then I don't have a lot of that time, but I always try to turn this a little bit around and ask a couple of questions to the customer first, so I have time to get additional info, even if we had a discovery call or some front up info. And this always helps me a little bit because I like to be as informed as possible, and I like to tailor my response as best to what actually is needed and not what I think is needed.
Yes, that's definitely something. I like that quite a lot. I'm definitely one to talk faster than my brain can process things, which can lead to some iffy situations. And so that idea of really taking the time to really hear it is what somebody is saying and to really understand that, to be able to present something that resonates with them is so key. So I love that you said that. I think that's a really important skill to have.
You mentioned, or at least in your title, you are a virtual sales engineer. What does that mean?
Well, actually, I think you had a colleague of mine from the US a couple of episodes back, and I think he works in a similar organization over there because he was talking a little bit about internal who he reaches out to, and it seems very the same like I do. So the virtual part is because we are supporting the virtual sales account managers, that's how they are called. And you can probably compare them a little bit to inside sales, but not really, because they are, for my segment is the commercial midsize, and it's big in Germany. So we have a lot of customers to cover and a little bit of public customers too. So, and we are also called virtual, but we are actually a generalist account SE. So we even have we are allowed and we should go out to the customer if it makes sense, but we should also leverage the virtual technologies we have to reach out to customer where it makes sense. And from apart from that, it's pretty much like the normal generalist account SE what we're doing.
Okay, so the podcast that you listen to is with Brian Young, which is show 96. He's also He's an SE, not a virtual SE, but
Yeah.
frankly, with your description, I think the only difference is that you support inside salespeople versus he supports outside salespeople, but you both do the same thing.
Yeah, and he mentioned reaching out to the specialists from the engineering team that are sitting in a hub, and we have pretty much the same concept here. And I compared it to inside sales, but the problem is this organization is, and that's the cool thing for me, is like Europe-wide, EMEA-wide, and we have a lot of contact to colleagues in other countries from our part as SEs. But we are in Germany, and in Germany it's a little bit different because Germany is a large theater for Cisco, and we have a lot of field SEs and teams around different industries and segments, and there's a lot of things that are intertwined, so to say. And so it's even though you could compare what they are doing to inside sales, they are also pretty much like they have also to do work that the field account managers would do also, and they are also going out to the customers and stuff like that. So it's like a mixed roles. That's why I said it's like inside sales, and it's a little bit more complicated, but we are trying to do as much work as we can virtual because we have to cover so much customers. But on the other side, many customers like if we come over to them, but that we are trying to do many things virtual. That's our power now, because now everything has to happen virtual.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if that changed anything for you, other than driving to the office for what seems like an hour.
Yeah, actually it is, but it's worth it because most of the account managers are living near the office and are coming to the office every day, except for now. And sitting there together helps a lot and makes many things a lot easier. And yeah, it's a little bit different now, but I like it because especially for the customer meetings, I think it's a lot more. It's a lot more professional touch if you're sitting in a room with a camera with your AM and then talk to the customer instead of pulling everything together virtually. But of course, now we have to do, and we can. And like I said, we are a little bit more trained, maybe like the field colleagues, but I don't know. That's just my perception of it, because I only joined half a year ago. But yeah, I think we're a little bit more equipped, maybe because we have to do more things virtually. But on the other hand, the colleagues in the field also know how to do this, so I'm pretty sure they are rocking it.
That makes sense. I'm actually curious. So in your role, you did mention obviously that there are other SE teams within Cisco. Do you primarily just work with European prospects or even just European colleagues, or do you ever kind of work with the North American counterparts to try to bring a deal home?
That's more like I did not have it. It did not happen to me yet. It's it maybe happen once in a while, but it's more like I have an EMEA touch because of my SE team and the connection we have there. But in the day-to-day work, we are only supporting German account managers and German customers. So the touch is more like on the technical side and the team internal side. But the day-to-day work is, at least for me and my direct colleagues from the team in Germany, only for German customers. Sometimes there's a little bit of overlap if the customer has European factories or stuff like that. But yeah, it's nice to have this international touch, because otherwise we would just be a German team working with Germans and everything. And I like it that's a little bit more international. It helps keeping a sharp edge on some skills like speaking English, because you don't have to speak English with German people.
Fair enough.
That's true. Yeah. So you said several times that you've been on the job for almost 6 months. I am curious, is there anything that surprised you about the job, whether it's positive or negative?
Actually, the only thing that surprises me a little bit is a positive thing. I have many people talk about don't go to the vendor, don't go to the dark side. It's not for everyone, and it's not like you thought it is. And yeah, they're right. It's not like I thought it was, but it's great, and I like it. And even big companies try to make everything possible to keep the employees happy. And that's the first time I worked for a big company where I actually felt like this was true.
Yeah. It's funny. They, as sales engineers, consider sales the dark side. Technical engineers consider sales engineers the dark side. So I guess it is a matter of perspective. So,
Yeah.
I saw something on Reddit actually yesterday about sales engineering. I was curious, like, well, where else is sales engineering being talked about? And it was actually that exact conversation where people are like, "Ooh, should I go into sales engineering?" And everybody's like, "No, don't do it. You're not going to like it at all. You don't do any engineering, and da 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 da." And that's the dark side. And yeah, that just flipped my perspective and this as well.
yeah.
I think it's more like the people who are saying, I tried it and it did not work, were the people that had the wrong expectations. Like they were thinking like, I go to the vendor, then I have access to all the cool resources, and then I can do what I've been doing all along, just on steroids or something like that. And then they go over there, and most technical vendor jobs are somewhere in sales engineering, maybe post-sales, depending on the structure and what the vendor is offering. But I think most is more pre-sales oriented, or at least has a pre-sales touch. And then they have to do something totally different than they were expecting. And I think that's where they realize that it's not what they wanted to do. But I knew when I was taking on this role that this would be something very different, and that I would have to learn new skills and change my way of thinking about it and work on how I'm working with the technology and everything. But for me, it was like changing for the better and the more interesting.
Yeah. I read a comment on Reddit a couple of years back that sales engineers, people who go into sales engineering, are those who couldn't make it as engineers. And I got really angry. Well, like, sales engineering is way harder than being an engineer. Like selling something to someone. Yeah.
I actually listened to episode 100 a couple of days back, and I totally agree with most of what the guys on there said, because you don't only have to know the technical thing, maybe depending on your role, not too deep, but deep enough. And you need to know so much more like business stuff and how to talk to people, how to present to people, even more maybe like a normal technical engineer in an enterprise organization. And this is a lot more complex. And I think maybe the Reddit comment wouldn't pop up today, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, people have their perception, and if they're happy with what they're doing, they can keep doing it. I'm happy with what I'm doing, so I'm okay with it. What would you say you learned, like, on the first couple of months on the job?
I got a different perspective from the vendor side, and I learned a lot about business acumen. I think that's the English word, because I never thought about this, but that it changed a little bit my own thinking about how to align business to IT, because I was already frustrated with this before I joined Cisco, when I was on the other side, that you always have to do something in IT that you want to support the business, but most IT people only think in their own terms. And my perspective for that my horizon got a little bit more broadened in the last couple of months. But of course, now I have to talk to the people that are still, maybe at least some of them are still only thinking about their own IT.
Yeah.
And that are the difficult discussions.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's something that you're going to have to overcome as a sales engineer.
Yeah.
First of many problems.
Yeah.
So, like, I know it's 10:30 at night, or 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night in Germany. So I want to ask you this before we move on to the not so fire round. Is there any advice you would give brand new SEs the first day on the job? Like, what would you tell them to do?
Find someone who you're comfortable with, who's doing your role or doing something similar to your role, and talk to him and ask him if he can help you get around for the first couple of days and weeks. Because I think like this coaching or apprenticeship, so to say, to someone who is a bit more experienced in the role you're taking on is the best thing you can have. And most companies try to do this with like partnering someone as mentor, but it depends on the size and especially on the size of the SE team. But if it's possible, try to find someone that is doing this or can do this for you, because getting the inside knowledge about tricks and tools and how to do the role from somebody firsthand with his or her experience is more valuable than any training you can be sent to, any training video or whatever.
That's amazing. That's awesome. All right. It is time for, you know what? You were worried before we started. Like, it is late. You're speaking English. And I have to tell you, you're very well spoken and you look very wide awake. You must have had a lot of coffees before showing up. So
I only had one coffee today.
Today,
and
all day.
All day. And that was about 12 hours ago. No, even sooner. I start my day at 6 in the morning.
Okay.
That was when I had my one coffee. Maybe it's like a little bit of adrenaline and the thinking process to keep talking English.
Well, we appreciate you staying up late. I had my one coffee maybe half hour ago. My one coffee per hour, half hour ago. So. All right, Benny, you want to start us off with a not so fire round?
Yeah, absolutely. So you've already talked a little bit about it, but what would you say, what are the things that you love about your job? One thing, multiple things. What do you love about your job right now?
I think I already said it in a bit different way. What I love the most is that there's always a different challenge, a new challenge every day, but it's not a challenge that you can't solve. Maybe it's a customer, maybe it's internal thing, maybe it's something new you have to learn, or something you have to handle because all hell has broken loose. Don't know, but it's always something different, and it's always most of the time something new. And I like that because that keeps my head fresh.
That's pretty good
Fair
reason.
enough.
Yep. If there's one thing you would change about your job, what would that be?
Something think I'm now through with, but what I would change, and this is probably true for most large organizations or even small ones, is the onboarding process, because I know what it is like in a small organization. There's nobody that has time for you and nobody that can tell you what you have to do. And in large organizations, there's maybe a process in place, but this is so generalized, and there's always some stuff that only you need or only certain people need, and if you don't have someone to tell you what it is, you search for it for days. And I know this is probably a problem nobody would ever solve, but this is the one thing I would always change, regardless of its SE job or any other job, because onboarding is time consuming, and always, even if it's the best structured process, there's always things that you need to figure out and that take too much time and keep you from doing the work you want to do.
Yeah, a lot of the work of SEs is just figuring out the first obstacle. Like, I want to install a Cisco router, a Cisco VM on my computer, and now I installed and something didn't go right, or I messed up a special command in KVM and now I have to figure that out. But that's not my job. But yeah, no, I get that. Yeah. Sorry, Benny, I interrupted.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's okay. It's actually really interesting. A very common theme across the board, kind of speaks to maybe the importance of, I don't know if it fits under the same bucket, but kind of around sales enablement, about setting up your team, setting up your structures to have, the proper resources available when you need it, so that you're not wasting time digging into an archive of who knows how many files or whatever to look for certain resources that you need. So yeah, just having having a nice structure to that is definitely good. And any opportunity you may have to maybe help out the larger organization to build out something like that could only increase your profile, which is just also a good thing. So to maybe speak to, some of the tools or resources that could be helpful for you, what are those exactly? What are some books, resources, or tools that you'd recommend?
I already thought about this beforehand. You probably realized because I listened to the podcast, so I tried to prepare for this a little bit. That's maybe why you call it the not so fiery round, because people can prepare.
Yeah.
But for me, the one resource I like most to get new stuff in my head that I even didn't think about that I maybe want to know it is podcasts, to be sure. And there are a ton of cool podcasts depending on what you're doing. For me, for networking, I like to make a shout out to the Packet Pushers Network, because they have a lot of cool stuff around network architecture. Of course, this podcast and that's not to be on your good side, but this is, I like it for me as SE, even so we have a ton of resources inside the organization. I always like the open touch, so to stay, have a toe in the general area, not only in my own company, and I like this, what you're doing. The other thing I would recommend, I have a book, and it's a little bit different from what most people say. I like this because it gives people a little bit of an insight of how a business might tick in a funny way. And the book I would recommend is The Phoenix Project, because it's an interesting novel. It's not like a technical book. It's more like a novel addressed to managers to help them realize what struggles IT is going through in an entertaining way. But I liked it for my part, because if you read this, you say, I know this, this happened to me. But it also gives a little bit of insight of how might be the business side thinking in an entertaining way for us as technical people too. And it's a much lighter read than maybe most technical books. But I still took some interesting lessons from it away for myself.
Nice. So the Phoenix Project was recommended on show 1.
That one I did not listen to yet.
Not yet, but like that was it. The first time I on the show Phoenix Project, and never again up until show 104. So, okay. Last question of the day for you, or the question before last. So, the question is coming, so I'm going to change it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
challenge me.
You've been in SE for a year or for half a year. What are the qualities of the SEs around you that you admire, and what are the qualities of the SEs around you that you think, meh, I don't want to be like that?
I don't want to be like the people that are going through their program, like they have made up their maybe slide deck or the presentation, their speaking pattern, and they're just going through that in every engagement, because this is like throwing it onto the customer and not like looking at it what he really wants and maybe tailoring it to it. And I think what is more like a quality that is something I would consider a great quality in a technical person, not only in SE, is like the ability to think out of the box, and to be open to always learn something new. You should not get into technology if you don't want to learn new things.
Yep.
But there are some people that don't want to learn something new. I don't know why. And like I said earlier, you should be able to listen to the people before you talk to them, especially if you get a sense like there's an urgency or something that is bothering them, because if you then steamroll them with just prepared words, you will never get through to them.
It's funny because the number 1 show that I talked about just a second ago, it's called Who Knew Listening Was Important?
I did not check this one, but it's funny.
So I have to introduce you two because you guys think within the same lines. So last question: where can people, if the people want to reach out to you and talk to you, how can they do that?
I'm on LinkedIn. Just look for my name, Tobias Metz, or I'm at Twitter, but I'm not very active there at the moment. It's at net_Toby. And also going by that name at the SE forums, if you want to reach me there.
Nice.
And I have probably pulled this around for 2 years, but I now have set up the domain and the WordPress, but not the content yet. But I'm in 1 or 2 weeks, I will have my first blog post out, hopefully. And then you can find it. I will plug it everywhere I can on Twitter and maybe then. And that's why I won't say the domain today, but you will find it. And I want to put it out. And for me, this is like, I want to do a blog about things that interest me, like technology in general, not only one thing like networking. And some experience I had from my career development, because I want to just try to want to share it, and let's see how it works.
Okay. So just so you know, this podcast is going to be out in a couple of episodes from the day we're recording. So if you have a blog post ready, send me the link to the website and it will be on the show notes on wetheSalesEngineers.com/show104. Sounds good?
Yeah, I will try it, but I don't know if I find the time over the weekend or the next week. But otherwise, I will plug it in the forum.
Yeah. Whenever you're ready, whenever you have it, let me know. I'll edit the show notes to include it. Okay. All right. Well, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate you staying up so late for us. At least it's so late for me, considering I go to bed at 9:30. So thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.
Well, as I said before we started recording, tomorrow it's Saturday. I can sleep out, and it's okay. I had a lot of fun, and I was sharper than I thought. I hope.
You were very good. It was excellent. I can say that.
And
thank you.
Thanks for having me. I really liked it talking to you too, and not only hearing you in my ear.
Well, we're glad you were able to make it. Thanks, man. Bye.
Bye.
What's up, Benny?
Not too much. How are you? Or this is the outro, right?
Yeah, this is the outro. I don't know why I came in so energetic on the outro. The outro should be, "What's up, Benny?"
Much better now after being educated just now.
Educated by me or by our guest? We just had an amazing show.
Yes, we did.
It's interesting. People think like you've been an SE for what, a year and a half, 2 years?
Yeah.
Did you think that you can teach anybody anything?
Like in my life or as an SE?
As an SE.
I mean, yeah, because there's always going to be people that won't know as much as you. Would I've ever thought that I could teach other SEs anything? Probably not. Not as early.
Yeah. Well, that's the point that I'm trying to get to. There's always someone you can teach. Maybe senior SEs are not the right target for you, but junior SEs could be, but you are teaching like two other SEs within your company today, right? Two or three. I can't even tell.
Two, learning from them too. But we're all learning from each other, I'd say.
Yeah. So that's the point, because our guest today, Toby, who we just finished talking to. I don't know. I can't tell if this is an intro or an outro, but let's assume it's an outro. We just finished talking to him, and he's been on the job for 6 months, half a year. And I feel like a lot of people will learn a lot of things from that discussion.
Yeah, agreed. Especially the route he's taken, the challenges he's had to face, the methods that he used to overcome challenges to be able to excel in what he's doing. I learned something from it. So yeah, I guarantee other people will as well.
Yeah, I learned that Germans can function at 11 o'clock at night with one beer and speaking a foreign language. No beer, sorry, with one coffee a day, one coffee a day and speaking a foreign language. That was impressive. But yeah, I love, like, he's just so methodical in everything that he does, right? Pop, pop, pop. It's interesting. Not many people are like that.
That's true. And he's also found that in a world that sometimes doesn't cater to people being methodical, that he's found a way to make it work too, which I found to be particularly interesting.
The funniest thing, like, he's talking about this, and I'm thinking about, I have 3 colleagues, SEs, in the same office as me, which I haven't seen due to COVID for the last few weeks. And one of them is just so anal and methodical. Like, you can tell his desk is clean. He has everything systemized. He takes notes about everything. We have on the other end a guy who's just la-di-da, like this is how I work, I'll just wing it. And they're both good SEs.
Yeah.
And like there isn't one that's better than the other. They're just both good SEs, with obviously each one has their own strength. So there is no one right way. It's whatever works for you. I guess like a diet or a workout routine.
Agreed. No,
Yeah.
very, very, very insightful.
Anything else?
No, I think I'm glad that that Toby was able to come on with us today. It's always cool to get an international perspective to it, and it's kind of cool that some things extend past borders, like the challenges we face, the roles we play, and what we could do to be better. So it's kind of cool to hear that from halfway around the world.
Yeah, it was interesting. All right, so that's it. Nothing else to add. Nothing witty.
Well, no, if anything, maybe a little safety thing. Everybody stay safe out there. Trying times right now, for you introverts out there. I'm sure you're loving it. For you extroverts out there. No, I'm super sorry. Trying to figure out a new hobby or something. That's really insensitive. I'm kidding. Yeah, just.
No, you're not. No, you're not. You don't like extroverts. It's fine. My wife is an extrovert, and she's like literally so close to going nuts. Like, yeah. Anyways, and so I don't know if anybody was aware of this. Whoever's on the email list, I emailed them last week or a couple weeks before this show comes out, and we did a virtual coffee break. So if you want to be part of that going forward, I'm going to try to do 1 a week or 2 a week to cater for both West Coast and Europe and Asia. So join the email list so you can learn about that when it comes on. That was not English, but with that, this is Ramsey signing off.